Should
Oh dear.
we? It is almost 4 in the morning where I am. Should we shift along to the podcast?
If it ever gets out, we know who did it.
How could you?
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunkduck QUACKCAST. We're on QUACKCAST number 521. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines, Pitt, Tarts, and Mal. Hello, Mal.
Hi.
Hello.
Mal is here to represent the adult comic creators, and we're talking about adult comics and various other subjects. You know, we're going to feel free to sort of just let the conversation evolve and organically grow and spread out into its own things. Like we were talking in our Patreon video about adult comics, and then we started talking about scrolling comics and how bad or good they can be, and how Milo Minara does bad noses on his ladies and stuff.
He can't. Yeah, I'll introduce myself before I regale you with my spicy opinions about extraordinarily famous erotic comic creators.
But before we get into that, we gotta bring up the featured comic. I featured a comic this week called Blake the Goblin Bilker. So I'm gonna tell you about that now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Blake the Goblin Bilker. Blake is a goblin. He is also a bit of an entrepreneur. He's just started up a little engineering shop, making low-quality magical items, and he's brought his niece, Pika, to do most of the hard work. He's a little shady, but what do you expect? He's a goblin after all. Things seem to be running along fine. The business is going okay, and Pika is doing a great job. But then Blake has a worrying encounter with a figure from his criminal past. The lure of easy money is too much for him, and things start to deviate from the plan pretty badly. This is a comedy urban fantasy story comic. The art is full color digital work, drawn in the artist's own individual style. The design of the characters and their exaggerated features really helps enhance the comedy and the narrative, I find. I really like Stinger9, that's who is the author and artist. I really like Stinger9's work, always. Stinger9 is very good with this sort of short characters with huge heads and big eyes and exaggerated features, and getting those to enhance the comedy. So it's very nice to see the work again, and I believe Blake the Goblin Bilker is a kind of a spin-off of Stinger9's main work, which is about dragons. So, which has also been featured before. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Blake the Goblin Bilker. It's rated T and it's by Stinger9, so please read it. And that was the featured comic, Blake the Goblin Bilker. Okay, so next up we have the featured music that I will tell you about, and it's the theme that Gun Wallace has given me again this week to Albion, which is a comic by Gene Joke, actually. Albion. So it's, I think it's like a fan comic for Star Trek Voyager sort of thing, sort of around that.
Yeah, it happens like in this. Yeah, the Star Trek universe with Gene Joke's own characters. I'm reading it. It's cool. It's done in 3D.
Yeah.
3D art, the Gene Joke approach. Yeah.
So Gun Wallace has given us some music which really evokes that Voyager kind of feel, that 1990s Star Trek feel, which was so cool. Albion, majestic and serene, equally appropriate for a long, sweeping view of a huge, brightly lit, modern starship with clean lines, or a beautiful mountain tarn filled with freezing, crystal clear waters reflecting heaven. Classical, awesome, and inspiring. So take it away, Gun Wallace, with Albion. featured music, which was Gun Wallace's theme to Albion, which is which is Gene Joke's comic based in the Star Trek universe. So we have Mal on today to talk about adult webcomics and tell us what exactly she doesn't like about Marley Minara.
I mean, that's mostly the Patreon special. You have to pay $10 a month to hear that.
$5. Okay. But
Okay, so you're selling me cheap now,
huh? Dirty deeds done dirt cheap is the...
huh? So nice to have two Australians on a podcast. Some good old classic Akadaka.
Their reach goes way beyond Australia.
It's so true.
Yeah.
That one,
So
I did.
I claim like ACDC as like Australian. I'm just like, no, the reach is international. They're everywhere.
The long, dirty arm of the ACDC. So Mal, you're doing adult comics, so you're the representative of all adult comics on Drunkduck today.
Oh, jeez.
All of them forever.
Which is like
perpetuity.
I mean, it's a little bit of responsibility, I guess. There's dozens of us.
There's a lot of good ones.
There really is.
Are you part of the? There used to be a big community of adult webcomickers focused around El Cid, because what he would do, he was the most popular of the adult webcomickers. So he would open his comic up for advertising, free advertising, for all the other adult webcomickers to keep everyone to spread the love basically, and to support the little community. So you weren't part of that yet? That might have finished.
That sounds like a Project Wonderful sort of deal. I was reading webcomics, not erotic webcomics. I was a little bit young. I was reading webcomics around about the time of Project Wonderful. I would have had to have been about 10 or 12. But by the time I started making and creating them in like 2018, 2019, that era was long gone.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately. One of the best ways to make a living as a webcomic artist with that ad money. Now we have to like rely on Patreon and all sorts.
OnlyFans. That would be another way to go for the making the money through that.
I mean, at least they're not going to ban you for putting sexual content on their platform, right? Like that's the point.
No, they ban people for that. So they've all sorts of double standards on that site. So yeah, they ban people for that on everywhere except Drunkduck.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unfortunate.
Your last bastion of peace.
It is.
But we are advocates of freedom of creation and all of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like with a lot of the other sites, my personal opinion is because like either they're relying on money from the App Store or they're relying on money from PayPal, neither of which are very friendly to anything they would consider like adult material or pornography. Which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, pretty much. There's the Apple Google duopoly of the internet at the moment, which is a good thing in some ways, but incredibly negative in others, because there's a bit of this 1950s social conformity that has to be sort of adhered to. And I don't even think it's just because Apple is Puritan. I think it's because they don't want to be, protested or whatever, or boycotted. So they're, they're using this as their kind of just way of doing things.
Well, you see, children have these apps, and a child might download a Tumblr and see a pornography, and like think of the children.
Exactly.
I get the kids are on the internet, but kids have been on the internet for years. When I was like 8, I saw things that I never should have seen on the internet. That's, beyond the scope of this it's beyond the scope of this discussion, but the fact is that you can't stop kids from seeing stuff on the interwebs.
And you
can
know
I
what
say something?
the duck
Oh,
does? Oh, sorry, Tanj.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, and how the duck handles it is, in order to see adult content on the duck, you have to be signed up to the duck. And for some services, maybe what you could do if you're these other platforms, I mean, it's easy. Have a children's account and then another account. I mean, problem fucking solved.
I mean, I have been pretending to be 18 on the internet since the year 2000.
Yeah, but that's fine.
But you've declared it.
There's nothing that's going to be foolproof, including trying to hack everything just off of the internet. That's not going to work either. You know,
Yeah.
You have to go for just a solution.
And at some point, like for the duck as a site, your liability has to end at some point. Like you have to say, well, we make people sign up for an account and they have to tick the little box to say that they're 18. Like, what do you want from me?
Exactly. And I also have to say, coming from an era where I was before the internet, I still was exposed to stuff I wasn't supposed to see. And not because of anything in my house, but because when I went to buy my little comic books and pulp fiction stuff and things that are age appropriate, they were, and I kid you not, they were stacked right next to the porn stuff, right next to it. So the first thing I saw, and I couldn't understand what the hell it was a pair of giant boobs that were, like, I'm talking giant though, like not normal boobs. That I would recognize, but those were, I remember it as a Kodak moment. I must have been like around 8 or something, and I saw those giant balloon watermelon size boobs with areolas the size of little saucers.
It sounds like this memory is burnt forever into your mind.
It does.
She's there right now, man. She's living it right now.
And I couldn't understand what part of the anatomy that was, because as a kid, I never had any mysteries on, female body, male body, reproduction stuff. All of that was explained to me from the moment I asked, but I had never seen that. And that was like,
Yeah.
YouTube is going to take us down so fast.
Well, the thing is, like, stuff like that, so granted, like, yeah, seeing some things is going to be startling for a lot of kids. The thing is, things wouldn't be as traumatic. I'm just saying in general, like you said that you had people that were talking to you about all that stuff, right? But there's a lot of kids out there that don't have any idea about sex or any good support to go to when they do see something like that. And that's really the problem. It's not necessarily that there's adult content out there. There's always going to be. There has been since the beginning of human times, which was a really stupid way to put that. But I mean, there's always been adult content in a sense. The downfall is that we don't have good support for kids for when they do find it. A lot of places, our first order of business is to shut it down or to hide it and hope that your kids never ask about it. Don't talk about it in the schools. And then kids, that's when the real damage happens, because then kids have this weird taboo thing that they shouldn't have seen, but they saw it anyway. And does that mean that they're bad now? Is the innocence ruined? Not the innocence. It's just
curious.
It's fucking ridiculous. We need to help kids better with this stuff, not.
Because kids are curious about adult material as well, not just because it's for adults. I mean, even before you hit puberty, it's the uncomfortable reality that kids are probably curious. So you need to offer them that kind of support because you don't, and that's a thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, or at least really want to think about, because it's kind of skeevy to think about, is that like people are sexual adults before, well, not sexual adults, they're sexual beings before they're 18. And that's like,
Mhm.
ugh, ugh. But
The
it's a
thing,
reality.
a thing that I have to say, as also as a mental health professional, is
Mhm.
that if you want your kid to not be curious ahead of time, when they are too early, about these things, just explain
Yes.
it in the same tone and the same style as you would explain how a telephone, like a landline of the 80s, works. Just do it without sounding like you are invoking heresy, or the cosmos is going to come and take a huge cosmic gasp at you for actually telling your kid how humans are made, and how and why women have boobs and men don't usually, and you know, things like that. Like, just explain, move on, and the kid will move on, because they are just learning the world as they grow up, and they will not they will take the nuance from the parent or whoever does the explaining, and they will uh, learn that something is weird or forbidden, and you have to go around it and be, sneaky about certain things from the parents. If the parents don't give that message to the kids will naturally be interested in as sexual beings, and not just as beings.
Yeah.
The
And
time
it'll open up an avenue of trust too between the parent and the kid. So in the
Mm.
future, even as the kid gets older, they have problems. You have somebody you can go to talk about it.
Exactly.
Man, I came on here to talk about
Just
adult comics. I hate kids.
This is
Well,
so
I have
sensual.
bad news. Half of your audience is kids. So I'm kidding.
No.
No.
See, as like a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, like I was reading. The first like smutty comic I saw on the internet was Oglaf, which is like
jeez,
Oh, yeah.
almost
that
like
was
almost like it's still good, I think. But like that was the first one. If like the listeners, you haven't read it before, I would highly recommend Oglaf. It's like a medieval fantasy, almost a gag a day strip comic. It's very funny. It has a lot of really diverse sexualities. It's really good. I think the second one I read must have been Sunstone, and I was way too young to read Sunstone, which is like a lot like a more of a not a strip comic. It's a long form lesbian BDSM romance. Should not have been reading that at that age, but I guess it was formative. I looked at that comic and I was like, I want to draw like that. I want to be able to draw like that guy. I'm not there yet, but it's still the gold standard for me.
You gotta get those Milo Manara noses. See if you got that.
For God's sake. I mean, like I mean, this is one of my other spicy opinions about like erotic art, is that like men in general don't make especially straight men, don't make very good erotic art, like at all.
Oh, interesting.
I think it depends.
And like whether
what you're into, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's individual.
I mean, and that's why it's a taste thing. Like it doesn't like generally it doesn't do it for me, because like, I'm like a queer non-binary woman, so like the potentially like the interests and desires of like the typical straight guy don't appeal very much to me, because like I guess because like that's the taste that drives what's considered sexy, or it's what's considered erotic, is that straight male gaze. And compared to that, my sexuality is considered deviant, So I guess
Yeah, so it's at variance with that style. So,
it is. So I struggle to look at this sort of work and be like, this good. This makes my penis be the big penis. We're going to be taken off YouTube anyway, people.
My penis be the big penis.
I spend way too much time on Twitter. That's an extremely crispy, deep fried meat. You can put that in the Patreon video. $20 and up.
There you go.
Oh, goodness me.
At least from what I cannot even pretend to be knowledgeable very much in erotic art and erotic narratives in general as much, but as a straight white question mark woman, I don't think I have found any that super appeal to me, to be honest. I mean, yeah, okay, there are some that might be, titillating, let's say, but yeah, I don't see, like, it doesn't, after a while it bores me. That's what
Yes.
I'm trying.
Whether you can look at something and say, "Oh, this is my thing. This was made for me," and like that's always aim to do when I make my pornographic comics, is think that they're like, as I make them quite specific and niche, so they're not going to appeal to like a lot of different people. Like there's a lot of like in there and a lot of like. It's like a fantasy comic, and it's in the past tense, and like everybody, like there are a lot of women on screen, so it's more of a niche thing. But for the person who finds it, and that small subsector of people, I want them to think, this is made for me.
Yeah, when I read Castle of Joy, two things really stuck out to me that made me really like it. One is it is an erotic comic, and it also still has a storyline,
Definitely.
And two, when it does get to the sex scenes, one thing I really like that you do is that you focus on certain aspects of it. I don't really like it so much when an erotic comic tries to mush too much into a scene, like, oh, this is happening, well, this is happening, and this is happening. It's just sex. All the sex is happening at once. Like
so much sex.
So much
all
sex,
the bobs and
all the ways. Oh my god! But like you focus on certain aspects of like the pleasure that the characters are feeling, or like what they're experiencing and stuff like that. And I mean, it's down to a tasting again, but I like that a lot better in an erotic story.
Yeah,
I mean,
another thing
that's only because I only wanted to draw so much. I have to reference so heavily for like because like you can hide anatomy mistakes under clothes, and that's like why I only started making these comics in like 2019 when I felt my anatomy was like okay. Because as I was like, you know what, the only thing worse than actually not making my vision is making my vision and it looks bad.
That's another thing, like people that undertake creating an erotic comic need to be amazing at anatomy, and props to hat off to you and everyone else that manages. Like, wow, guys, awesome. Guys and girls.
I mean, it's all referencing.
Yeah, but that doesn't, like, we have examples of professionals in mainstream comics that reference, and the reference doesn't actually carry over very well on the page. So yeah, reference is not something, in my opinion, that undermines the talent that has
definitely
to
not.
So
although the strange nuance referencing for erotic comics, and like this is for, I guess, all of the people who are either making them or want to make them, is that you're going to have to look through a lot of references from mainstream porn made by straight people for straight people, and you're going to be able to smell it with your eyeballs. But unfortunately, that's the only thing that has the one pose that you need, so you're going to have to look at it. Which is just like, I guess, a really specific a hyper-specific niche thing.
I guess it feels a little bit like having to really look at all the Nazi stuff and be like, have a whole file full of swastikas and not actually be a Nazi. It's my
Yes.
reference thing problem. It's like, and sometimes it has helped. Like especially when I Google a really specific Nazi stuff that I want to be able to draw in.
Yes.
And it feels like if someone looks at my search history or, God forbid, my screen right now, I would prefer to say for them to have seen me looking at porn than this.
Yes. I can imagine.
So yeah, I have had this experience.
It's like Googling how to murder people and hide the body and then say just like, no, I'm a writer.
Exactly.
The creative professions are so strange.
Yeah. It's like, please nobody look at me right now. Like, just don't even look at me right now while I'm researching this, please. Thank you.
My partner always knows when I'm drawing like smutty scenes from this Castle of Joy because I have the study door closed. And he's always like knocks on the door and he's just like, Mal. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can I come in or are you drawing porn? Which is like quite funny because he also is like quite a prolific porn writer. So
Wow.
we complement each other perfectly.
He understands.
But yeah,
the porn sorority.
I did. It is very hard to find diversity in mainstream erotica. And when I say diversity, I don't mean necessarily only LGBTQ. It's just there is a singular approach to eroticism that I have seen.
And I really do think that that's down to like a lot of directors and like, I mean, actors being used to the status quo, directors being used to the status quo, and porn being like, especially I'm referring to like, mainstream filmed porn with like it's high budget filmed in a McMansion somewhere. Like that kind of stuff is really made for men. It's made for and by men. So like, because erotica like has like that specific taste component that is so personal to you and your experience, that porn and painted in such broad brush strokes, you can just kind of look at it and be like, this isn't for me. And so you can find yourself thinking like, this isn't for me. So am I a sexual being? Is like, can I be interested in like, erotic material? Like, am I broken? Should I mold my preferences to this porn? Is this what men want? Like you find yourself asking a lot of questions because the only kind of sexuality you see, and when I say you, I mean me, like me, especially when I was younger, but like you think, am I broken?
Mm-hmm.
Should this be getting me off? Because it's not.
Right.
The one thing that I always caught myself thinking in some of the steamiest scenes is that has to be uncomfortable.
Oh my God, yes.
That doesn't look very comfortable, like, or pleasurable, or like, and it throws you away out of the pleasure in the sense like, why must you be like these artists right now? Like, is there purpose?
Reminds me of my seat cushion at the moment. It's very uncomfortable.
But yeah, like all of that kind of thing is really immersion breaking, and like that's why I'm like a big yell very loudly in support of like independent sex workers, independent erotica creators, people who are making this kind of like weird niche stuff for people who like it's weird and it's niche and it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like
diversity mainly. That's the thing that we need. It's rather than, I mean, we're not talking about replacing straight white male stuff with with this stuff because this stuff's better. It's more that there is it's better if there's a diversity of stuff. So we have the straight stuff.
Yes.
We have
And
the
honestly,
alternative.
I have to say something.
Sorry, Thomas.
I have to say something. Sorry, I always talk over you. It's my fault. It's not yours. What I wanted to say, speaking for this situation, is that also considering that white men all have this one thing that they want is also very bad. Like there are different tastes within, white men. The white straight men, I'm saying that not everyone is going to want to learn how to pump aggressively. Let's say, like some might want to see something else as well. It's like
Exactly though. Geez, I'm just like an open apology to like all of the straight people who happen to be listening right now and haven't just like rage quit this podcast.
They're fine. They can handle it. But it's not about them for 2 fucking seconds.
Yeah, I know, right? Like imagine. And like speaking of like queer porn, I mean there's a lot of like great places for that. Like Filthy Figments really comes to mind. It's like an erotic comic site that's specifically for and by LGBTQ plus people. And that's like a really lovely space. But it's behind a paywall. Which like means everybody's being paid fairly, but there's not really much scope on the internet to like put your work out there for free without having to, shell out for a hosting site.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like this is where I found the duck in the first place. Is I was looking for somewhere to like post this comic, and like most sites were, you can have a single boob, but no more. There will be one boob, not two.
Because if it's one, you can like cross your eyes and pretend it's just like a really big hill on the horizon.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I guess that's what Tapas does when they do their like content censoring. They cross their eyes and they're like, could it be mistaken for a hill? Yes, then it's fine. And like, I get what they do.
Floating on Tapas, but I mean, I do think in Inhabitants, because I've been more and more interested in the idea of.
Thomas was just telling us about the boob hill in Athens.
Oh yes, that actually, to be honest, that's what inspired me for that analogy. So thank you for your boob hill in Athens, Anya.
You're very welcome.
It continues to echo through the ages.
I've been to a nipple many times. It's very pleasurable.
and for people that are that like provocative controversy, the nipple in the Tit Mountain on the Tit Mountain is a church.
It's a white church.
It is a white.
Actually, I did just have a side thought. I said that Tapas doesn't allow erotic content, but they actually do. They have like their mature section, which is all behind a paywall. It's their premium comics, and it doesn't show up on the mobile app.
Wow.
I see.
So they have it, but not for us peasants.
Not for the peasants. Not for the. I hope that the creators actually get money from that paywall. Then
I do believe that the premium creators are like it's similar to like the premium creators on Webtoons in that they get money for it. Which like I'm not a fan of like a lot of the premium comics, but like I'm really happy that people are getting paid for their work.
Yeah.
Like that makes me happy.
How far do
It's
they
nice.
go
Now
with their adult stuff?
Sorry?
Do you know how far they go with the adult stuff? Is it?
I have like no idea. I just have seen it as part of like the mature section, so I'm not sure if there is actual like a penis on screen at any point. Like I don't actually know if there's any like fucking. God, I'm so crass. I'm so sorry.
Why is it okay to show female but not male genitalia?
Is it okay to show female genitalia?
It's a lot easier
Yeah, because of like presumably like sexist double standards.
Oh, okay.
It's like women are seen as objects in a lot of art. So like boobs and like a vulva or a vagina is like, oh yeah, that's fine. But like a penis is like, oh, well, this is definitely a sex thing. While women, it's like, well, they're just objects. It's just art. It's fine.
You'll scare the men away. You'll
it's
scare the
also-
straight men away if you make
Also that.
penis.
It's also because the genitalia is external in internal because it's mostly hidden. So on
A dick is just really confronting.
yeah, and
Like,
on,
look at that thing. It's just like, oh,
yeah, Baines, put it
oh,
away.
it's just sort of there.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
He's like,
Oh,
this is
people
my
in
I
the
don't know. I
bus,
cannot see your
hate
vein
it.
feed. You might just have it like flapping around.
I do know artistically, like the ancient Greeks didn't really like male genitalia in its proper size. They felt that it was ruining the aesthetic of the male body. So that's why everyone is telescopically endowed, let's say. Like, everything is like as tucked in as possible and as small as possible.
It's so interesting how tastes change.
Yeah,
They didn't really include like female genitalia in really simplified art is weird because you could technically draw it without drawing it.
yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
So there's looking at the vagina head on, which is just like a boop,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Unless you like draw the little lips.
Yeah.
Sorry, YouTube. Go fuck yourself. But you could just draw like the same as if
Mhm.
you, I don't know, Buffalo Bill it. You know, it's just like there's nothing there. It's just like Ken mode. Whereas it changes if you change the angle of the body, then you can actually see the vagina, right? And then that's like you're getting actual vagina, but you can draw a naked person with the vagina head on and not actually draw
Yeah.
the vagina itself.
Or the vulva, as they say.
The vulva.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
vulva.
Let's write to Papos and be like, what's your position on the vulva?
Okay, but like I kind of want to write that as like a support email, just like subject line, vulva, body. What is your position on the vulva? Full stop. Regards, Mallory. Way to get myself banned.
And there also needs to be like a footnote on that question on what is your position on the vulva, in saying that do you know where the vulva is positioned? As well.
Yeah.
Reverse cowgirl, that's usual.
I don't know why that works, because there's a reason why reverse cowgirl actually can work. So, it's slang. But yeah, the aesthetics were in the ancient Greeks were really like the smoother, the more beautiful. So you've got a worm there that makes things not smooth. And
Yes.
let's just
The
as
worm.
tastefully, yes, let's just make it as tastefully streamlined as humanly possible. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ironic.
Other than
They
that-
made it look
Other
like...
than that, they sculpted that thing everywhere. Like, even if they didn't sculpt the rest of the body, they would put, stick like a set of genitalia there on that
Yeah.
pillar.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's
Absolutely.
that
I've been to
oh,
Greece. There's penises on everything, on
Yeah.
the walls,
Uh-huh.
everywhere.
in the
Oh,
Can't,
yeah.
you can't trip or else you'll land on a penis.
in the Olympic
I love my
Stadium
mic that gets
there,
its
they
nose
have
over.
this they have this block thing that's just like an oblong, and I think it's got a head on top of it, but the body is just like a rec, just a block, square, 4 sides, but it has a dick on one side and a vagina on the other. So, yeah, just sticking on this block, it's an amazing piece. it's bizarre when you come up to it because you think, oh, this is just a plinth with like a statue head on it, like a bust. And yeah, you walk up to it, and then you see this genitalia on either side of it. So
The statue has all of it's got all the bits.
it's anatomically correct, fully.
Although, speaking of like a webcomic, well, comic platforms and things like Twitter, and I think we talked about Tumblr a little bit earlier, but I do love that they profit so much from, and just so much traffic is driven because sex sells. People are interested in erotic works and pornography because it it gets people off, but it also, I think pornographic art is like when people go hardest on their own bullshit. They go hard. Like Milo Manara's comics, as much as I don't like them, seem to be like a really clear indication of what gets him off, and like I guess that's beautiful. So it's like you can get that real artistic human connection really easily with erotic work because people are hiding so little of themselves. But these platforms, as for all the clicks it drives, they don't want it on there.
Do you find that for yourself? Like when you make Castle of Joy, does it feel kind of liberating in a sense? Like, I like this, and I don't have to sit there and be like, oh, it's too taboo to express that there's somebody in the world who is enjoying this.
Yeah, I mean, I joked a little bit earlier when I said that there was no plot there. There's a plot. It's porn with plot. Yeah, I consciously made the choice when I was writing the rest of it to be like, you know what? I don't care. This isn't actually linked up to my real name. If people think this is like weird and freaky and judge me for it, then like that's fine. I'm just going to go super hard on what I think is great. So, and I think that sentiment is pretty true among a lot of erotic artists.
That's actually, like, if you're going to do it that way. Otherwise, it's going halfway, and that's never going to be fulfilling.
Yeah, if you're making like art, an erotic art that doesn't appeal to you, or like erotic art for mass market appeal, then like, are you any better than like the kind of unappealing porn we were talking about before?
Mm-hmm.
What's really the point otherwise?
Exactly. Like, for God's sake, everybody, we're webcomic artists. Everything we make is like hyper specific and niche, and for like 10 people around the world that get it. And you make it for those 10 people, and that's what's important.
Yes. Don't waste your life making porn that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's my thesis when I make work, is to be like I work a lot. I work probably 50, 60, sometimes 70-hour weeks. I am like, you know what? I'm going to spend my time making art. I'm going to make the art, like the exact art that I want to see in the world.
Exactly.
So that's always my mission statement when I sit down to draw, is just like.
And I think that shows because, okay, I'm going to say, looking at your art, there is a level of purity to it. Like there is a sincerity.
Like I don't give a fuck. I have made no money from these comics. I will never make any money from these comics. Let's just go.
I mean it in the best of ways. That there is a
I'm taking that as like honestly, like a really high compliment.
Oh, thank you. I mean it as a high compliment because usually I don't often see it is what I'm getting at. So that would be nice to see it more.
Yeah.
I mean, talking specifically about the Castle of Joy, it's a like an erotic webcomic based like about a non-binary horny goblin knight, based on not like a 1,000-year-old 600-year-old English poem written like under the patronage of Elizabeth I. Like it's a like loosely based on the Fairy Queen. Like this is it's as niche as you can get.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's
very much
like, it's for like I guess a weirdo like me.
It's a Queen Mab, I suppose.
Malk, so like I can go deep into this. Like, I can go deep. I have my conspiracy board. For all of you podcasters, I'm currently gesturing to my blank wall, but I'm gesturing to the conspiracy board in my heart. So, for example, like the Castle of Joy is a real location in the Fairy Queen, and Malcastra is a person in the Fairy Queen. But it's like the section with Malcastra and the Castle of Joy is about Britomart, and she's like a knight who dresses up as a man who like goes into the castle, and Malcastra like desperately wants to sleep with Britomart. Why not? I guess
Yeah.
lesbianism.
Mhm.
Which I just thought was just such an interesting setup in a comic it's not a comic, a poem that's just so old. So I was like, well, what if I take the names from this, change literally everything else, and write a comic about it? And here we are.
Oh, it's fascinating to have something based on real stuff and be an adaptation of that. So it's not.
I'm
just
glad you think it's
erotic.
interesting, because as I speak, I think, oh Jesus Christ, this is boring.
It's
Who
not
reads
though.
poems?
Not seriously, not blowing smoke up your ass, whether that's your thing or not. That I
It
really
isn't. I
do
want to
like
die
reading
every
your
time someone compliments me.
But I mean, I sincerely do like to read your comic, and for the exact reasons I told you before, I want to see what happens. I like the lore that you've been setting up with it. I want to see how they kind of deal with their magic predicament. I
I'm going to
like the
draw you some
provocative
pages tomorrow.
characters, but they don't feel phony or stupid. They're just it's and like I said, the sex scenes, you make them in a way that really works. I like it, okay? Stop knocking the fucking top. I like it. There's a plot. There is a plot.
All right, I'm gonna draw some, because I have like actually like 6 or 7 pages that are just finished in my folder right now, and I'm like, I gotta build up a buffer, but I also want to release all the pages, so I'll draw some more pages for you tomorrow, because I
Okay.
have a Sunday. Thank
Specifically for me.
God,
Give
specifically
them
for
to me.
you.
Okay.
I mean, and like that's the thing with webcomics, like Love and War, my other comic. You know, I have like 2 or 3 people who comment on like every page, and like I make the comic for those people.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, webcomics are so cool. I could talk about them for hours.
Yeah.
The people that do regularly comment, they do kind of like weave their way into your mind as you're making a comic, don't they? Like you wonder what
They
such and such
do.
will say. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
It's such a strange little there's a strange little dynamic, because I don't know any of my commenters. Like my regular commenters, I don't know them. I only know their profile pictures. I only know the comments they leave on the pages, but I think of them when I'm making my pages, and I think of them when I'm putting them up, and I like look out for their comments. It's like you're making for a circle of like small close friends, which is just such I think the fan fiction community and the webcomic community share that amongst themselves, of this like little niche pockets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small community, but it's tight, and we care about stuff a lot, which is the main thing.
And I think like, as you know, and like I don't make a secret of it, I'm not a big fan of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I think as more people get burnt out from these big franchises, they'll turn to like small art made by indie creators. And like webcomics is a great example of that.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
you know, I could say, like, from talking to you in private about, like, our comics and stuff like that, you're a really encouraging person, especially when it comes to, like, because I've talked to you about, you know, the idea that I do want to experiment with some more erotic stuff in comics at some point. I don't know how far I'll go with it, but, like, you're a super encouraging and knowledgeable person to talk to about that. And after I talked to you about it, like, I felt like, yeah, I can do this and not like feel like I've done the ultimate sin and that I'll be cast out of the comic community forever for being an idiot with it. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just helps. Like, I think, especially if you're thinking about doing something like this, to have a community or more people
Yes.
that you can talk to about it, because especially since you have such a healthy outlook on it too, that really helps.
I mean, I'll see if I can send, because the thing that got me started on all of this is a Twitter thread by an erotic artist named Celine Loop. Her work is unbelievably good. So like she had a Twitter thread actually about porn and about desire and like one thing that really stuck with me that she said in the thread was that kink is metabolized trauma. Basically, like people's sexuality really reflects like what's happened to them in their lives and like their life circumstances, and like it's a way for our lizard brains to process the things that's happened to you, and like maybe even the bad things that's happened to you in like a safe space. So that's really influenced my outlook on erotic work, and it made me realize that like, you can't do something as tough like a webcomic all alone. You have to have people around you, like whether they're your friends on Twitter or whether they're on like a Discord. Like I always try and be a supportive person in the community, because like I would never be making comics if it wasn't for the people around me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing that I feel is extremely important, and I think we do have it on the dark in terms of community, is that you feel accepted and celebrated for your art and what you do, even by people that don't actually, it's not their thing. What they're doing is not their niche, and they're not actually as interested as they would be in whatever is their niche. But there is this acceptance to it, and a value ascribed to all work that is done within the web community. At least on the dark, I have never seen, barring a very few outliers a long time ago, where we had completely different variables of people coming in. I have never seen anyone disparaging a person for their interests or for what they want to invest their art or artistic endeavor, or what they want to make. And I really like that. I think that especially when it comes to erotic art and adult art, people have to be encouraging to how artists explore, even if they don't actually read it themselves. I'm talking about myself. I am a very prudish person. I don't really go much into sexuality, at least not yet. But I really like knowing that people that are investing their art into this have a nice, without feeling that they are the marginalized people we don't talk about, in a sense. And I will be always in support of having adult comics on the site, and recognize that we do have them and be proud of that for that reason, because it is an art form. And I do think that more people that want to explore should do it when they want to explore it at their own pace, and for their own interests, without needing to defend it from anyone else, as they usually do. I have seen that.
Yeah, justifications and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing about webcomics, right? Is just that everybody's there and they're doing their own like weird little thing. So like it'd be crazy to disparage anyone from doing that.
Exactly. And you never know, as you develop as an artist, what your interest is going to evolve into, and what you are going to be interested in doing in the future, unless you really constrict yourself, which is a sad situation if you do. So being exposed and being a community with people that have completely different interests than you is a very healthy thing, and it keeps the creative juices flowing a lot. I really do think that adult comics shouldn't be considered taboo.
No,
Uh,
definitely not.
Yeah, and actually it saddens me that they are, because then you got all sorts of weird things going on around them that basically isolate them and isolate creators and isolate the readers from what they could gain from uh, art that is being done not like a commercial thing, mainstream thing, but the things that are done out of love are unique.
Yes.
That's I'm going off, so stop me.
I mean,
I-
like, I don't think you can talk about erotic work without like mentioning that it's all personal, and like, I guess once you get
Mhm.
really down to it, it's all really weird. So it's this care factor that's present in all good erotic work. But I do think that like erotic comics are stigmatized mostly because like with a book you can have a sex scene and it's all writing, right? It's all up to your like vivid imagination. But with a comic, there's like a dick right there. It's on the page. You're reading it on the bus. Like it's very
It's in your
confronting.
hand.
It's
You
the
can
visual
smell
part
it.
of it.
It's
Mm.
a little
Yeah.
stanky.
If you can smell your comic, you are doing it wrong. I'm saying that now with not even a judgment. But if you can smell your comic, you're doing it wrong.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
But the division between like clean work and like dirty work, I think is just such a false one. Like, let me Google it really quickly. But the guy who created Superman, I remember reading a book in university about his like underground erotic work. Joe Shuster. Yeah, he's the creator of Superman, and he did these like intensely sexual BDSM drawings, and they're in his style, so it's like a strange mirror universe. It almost looks like a strange mirrored Superman. There's Lois Lane and there's Superman because those are the faces and bodies he draws.
Wow.
But it's really interesting that he had to do that under like a pseudonym, and he was a completely separate part of his life to Superman.
Let me look that up now. What about the Wonder Woman stuff, which was done by the bondage enthusiasts? So it's like
Yeah.
two big DC
Yeah.
heroes were both bondage things. That's amazing.
And well,
It's-
this makes
yeah.
sense because think about, so when you're a fan of something, you want to know about that thing, right?
Mhm.
Well, and that's why there's a lot of fan fiction and fan art out there, because when people have fandoms that they get really into and characters that they get really invested in, when there's kind of open questions about like their sexuality or like their, just how they have it bumping down there, fans fill that in with their imagination, and you get fan fiction and all sorts of stuff, which is great,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a question that fans always do have on their mind. How do they do the bumping? What happens, because it is such an intrinsic experience to a lot of our lives. And that includes people who aren't interested in it at all, which is also very valid. We forget about those people too.
Yeah.
But the
Although-
sexuality, whether it's a big part of your life or whether it's, no matter what your orientation is a presence in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
And-
if you any asexual people listening, if you want a good comic for representation for you, I would highly recommend Ghost Junk Sickness. There's lots of ace characters of like varying spectrums.
Ooh.
That was just like that was my plug for a good
awesome.
friend of mine with a
Because
wonderful comic.
There's not a lot of representation for ace
No.
people, so that's really great.
The one thing I want to go back to, as I said, like that for kids that you should just explain stuff to them without making it sound or feel weird, and things will go naturally. I think that holds also for adults in the sense that we are an over-sexualized society, but we're also very cryptic about it, and
Yes.
that creates a big problem. That's where the problem lies. If things were demystified, and if things were not presented as something that is forbidden or wrong or weird or whatever, then it would take its natural and rightful place within human experience, and things would be a lot better for everyone involved.
Yeah.
A big problem lies in that people feel that they are forbidden to talk about sex and boobs and vaginas and penises and everything else, and that makes them have a very unhealthy relationship to those urges and question and what have you. So that's another element why, although I am not, like, it's not really my thing to read the erotic art or to be into the erotic thing. There should be no stigma, there should be no wall around it, and no mystification of, oh, now I'm walking into forbidden territory and I should guard my screens, and God forbid that anyone sees a boob or a penis or a dick or whatever. Like those are natural parts of human anatomy and a natural thing, and it should be considered natural, just like nowadays we have bathing suits and boys and girls going to the beach together, which was not a thing not too long ago. So what I'm saying is, let's all enjoy each other's niche.
Oh my God.
And
right now?
yeah,
but she's right.
right now,
It's 5 in the morning. I'm not enjoying anybody's niche right now.
So the thing that I wanted to say is that by saying enjoying it, is that enjoying that it exists and people are partaking in it, and they are, having their own fun the way that you have your fun with whatever is your thing. Period. Stop laughing. I'm trying to be serious about boobs and dicks and vaginas. Okay. Seriously.
Oh jeez, I was trying not to double entendre that, but it's just so hard.
How can you double entendre?
So hard, huh? Every time somebody says it's so hard during this cast, I have to try not to be 12 years old. Like, how hard?
I feel like if there was ever a QUACKCAST to be absolutely 12 years old, it's this one.
And you know what? If your niche is to be 12 years old about everything, you do you and get it out.
Well, maybe not. Maybe. keep it to keep the kids out of your bedroom, please.
Yes.
Oh my God! Come on! Now I feel like I want to vomit. Thank you for that.
Remember, everybody, consent is sexy. Find your king.
Consent is sexy and adult. Consent is adult. Yes.
Yeah, it's an informed consent, and you have to be
Mm-hmm.
old enough to be able to be informed, which is very important. So,
Yes.
Exactly.
there we are. Well, we should wrap this up now. We're at 101 minutes 19.
That is also.
Oh, it's a good meaty podcast.
Yeah.
Good thick meat podcast.
Thick and
Really
juicy. Yeah.
And
Thick
wrap up.
and juicy. This is terrible.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Well, this has been QUACKCAST 521, and we've had the magnificent Mal.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Hooray!
Castle of
Thanks for
Joy.
reading.
Go and read it. Have a look at it. Peruse it. And see if that is in your niche.
show it to all your
I'll jump in sideways and say that if you wanna talk about your comic or my comic or like, please don't send me a dick pic. But if you wanna like have an intelligent conversation about erotic comics, I'm there on the dock, and my Discord username is @Malvarav6969. Always free to chat. It's so appropriate. I know what I'm there for. Yeah, make your weird fucking comic. I want to read it. Put it on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, people, for listening. Next week, we'll be along again. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
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 Bye.